Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. Slaughterhouse-Five follows the life of Billy Pilgrim, a soldier and optometrist who becomes unstuck in time and experiences events of his life out of sequence. The novel is set during World War II and centers on Billy's capture by the Germans and his survival of the bombing of Dresden, a horrific event that serves as a key moment in the book. Throughout the novel, Billy travels between different points in his life, including his time as a POW, his post-war years in America, and his experiences on the alien planet Tralfamadore, where he learns a different perspective on time and death. The novel explores themes of free will, trauma, and the absurdity of war, blending science fiction, satire, and personal reflection. Let's deep dive into the book. Billy Pilgrim's early life and war experience. Billy Pilgrim, the protagonist of Slaughterhouse-Five, is introduced as a mild-mannered optometrist who has become unstuck in time, experiencing his life in a non-linear fashion. As a young man, Billy is drafted into the U.S. Army during World War II. His lack of preparedness for war is apparent as he bumbles through his military service, eventually being captured by the Germans. Along with other prisoners of war, POWs, Billy is transported to Dresden, where he witnesses the firebombing of the city, a traumatic event that becomes the central focus of his wartime memories. The novel's portrayal of war is brutal, chaotic, and senseless, highlighting Billy's passivity in the face of destruction. The bombing of Dresden. The firebombing of Dresden in February 1945 is one of the key events in Billy's life and serves as a focal point for the novel's anti-war message. Vonnegut, who himself survived the bombing as a POW, uses Billy's perspective to depict the horror and devastation of the attack, which killed tens of thousands of civilians and destroyed much of the city. Billy and his fellow prisoners survive the bombing by hiding in an underground slaughterhouse, which gives the novel its title. This event profoundly affects Billy, and his subsequent mental dislocation and time-traveling experiences can be seen as a response to the trauma of war. The novel's refrain, "So it goes," is used repeatedly after moments of death or destruction, reflecting a resigned attitude toward the inevitability of death and suffering. Billy's capture in time in the slaughterhouse. Before the bombing, Billy is captured by German forces along with a ragtag group of soldiers. Among them is Roland Weary, a delusional, violent man who blames Billy for his capture and later dies of gangrene. Billy and the other prisoners are transported to Dresden, where they are housed in an abandoned slaughterhouse, Slaughterhouse-Five. Billy's time as a POW is marked by the absurdity and futility of war. The conditions are harsh, and the soldiers witness the destruction of civilian life during the firebombing. This experience leaves a lasting mark on Billy, contributing to his fragmented perception of reality. Billy's post-war life and trauma. After the war, Billy returns to the United States and becomes an optometrist, marries Valencia, and starts a family. However, his experiences in Dresden haunt him, and he struggles with feelings of alienation and despair. Billy's passive demeanor and acceptance of the absurdity of life reflect his emotional numbness. He experiences flashbacks to the war and becomes convinced that time is not linear, but rather that all moments exist simultaneously. This belief reflects his inability to process the trauma of the war. As a result, Billy's life becomes increasingly disjointed, with his time travel episodes serving as a metaphor for his fragmented mental state. Billy's abduction by the Tralfamadorians. Billy's experiences with the Tralfamadorians, an alien race that abducts him and takes him to their planet, add a layer of science fiction to the novel's narrative. The Tralfamadorians perceive time in a non-linear way, seeing all moments, past, present, and future, as existing simultaneously. They teach Billy that death is just one moment among many, and thus nothing to be feared or mourned. The Tralfamadorians' philosophy influences Billy's outlook on life, leading him to adopt a fatalistic attitude toward events, particularly death. Billy's time with the Tralfamadorians also includes his experience in their zoo, where he is displayed alongside Montana Wildhack, a famous actress with whom he forms a strange bond. The concept of time and free will. A major theme in Slaughterhouse-Five is the nature of time and free will. The Tralfamadorians' perspective on time challenges the conventional understanding of past, present, and future. For them, time is fixed, and events cannot be changed. Everything that happens is predetermined. Billy adopts this view, which shapes his fatalistic approach to life. The novel raises philosophical questions about free will, suggesting that individuals have little control over their fates. Billy's passive acceptance of events, from his wartime experiences to his abduction by aliens, reflects his belief in the inevitability of everything that happens. This theme critiques the glorification of free will in human society, especially in the context of war. So it goes, and the absurdity of death. Throughout the novel, the phrase "so it goes" is repeated after every mention of death, whether it's the death of a soldier, a civilian, or even champagne. This phrase encapsulates the novel's attitude toward death. It is inevitable and often meaningless in the grand scheme of things. The repetition of "so it goes" highlights the absurdity of human existence, particularly in the context of war, where death is frequent and often random. Vonnegut's use of this phrase underscores the novel's anti-war message, emphasizing the senselessness of violence and the inevitability of mortality. The destruction of innocence. The novel also explores the destruction of innocence, particularly through Billy's character. Billy is portrayed as naive and unprepared for the realities of war, and his experiences in Dresden strip away any sense of innocence he once had. The novel contrasts Billy's pre-war innocence with the horrors of war, showing how individuals are forever changed by violence and trauma. Billy's time with the Tralfamadorians can be seen as an attempt to reclaim some form of innocence, as he learns to view life and death through a detached, fatalistic lens. However, this perspective ultimately prevents him from fully processing the emotional and psychological effects of his experiences. Vonnegut's use of dark humor and satire. Vonnegut employs dark humor and satire throughout Slaughterhouse-Five to underscore the absurdity of war and human existence. The novel's tone is often ironic, as Vonnegut juxtaposes the horrors of war with Billy's dispassionate, almost detached response to them. Characters like Roland Weary and Edgar Derby are exaggerated to the point of caricature, highlighting the ridiculousness of war and the people who glorify it. Vonnegut's use of humor allows him to critique serious topics such as violence, death, and trauma, while maintaining a sense of levity. This blend of humor and tragedy is a hallmark of Vonnegut's style and contributes to the novel's enduring appeal. Billy's death and the circular nature of the story. In the final chapter, Billy predicts his own death, which will occur during a speech he gives in Chicago. He knows that he will be shot by Paul Lazaro, a fellow soldier who has held a grudge against him since the war. True to his fatalistic philosophy, Billy accepts his impending death without fear, reflecting the Tralfamadorian belief that all moments in time are fixed and unchangeable. The novel ends with Billy's death, but because of the non-linear narrative structure, it feels less like an ending and more like a continuation of the cycle of life and death. This circular structure reinforces the novel's exploration of time and the inevitability of events. Let's meet together the main characters of the book. Billy Pilgrim is the protagonist of Slaughterhouse-Five, a passive and disoriented man who becomes unstuck in time after experiencing the trauma of World War II. As a soldier, Billy is ill-prepared for combat and ends up witnessing the horrific firebombing of Dresden as a POW. After the war, he becomes an optometrist, marries, and has children, but he remains haunted by his war experiences. Billy's time-traveling experiences, particularly his abduction by the Tralfamadorians, represent his attempt to make sense of the chaos and suffering in his life. His passive acceptance of life's events, including death, reflects his belief in the inevitability of fate and the futility of free will. Edgar Derby is an older soldier who is captured along with Billy and becomes one of his fellow POWs. He is portrayed as a fatherly figure, compassionate and principled, but ultimately powerless in the face of the horrors of war. After surviving the bombing of Dresden, Derby is executed by the Germans for a seemingly trivial crime, stealing a teapot from the ruins of the city. His death serves as one of the novel's most poignant examples of the absurdity of war, highlighting the arbitrary and senseless nature of violence and punishment in times of conflict. Roland Weary is a fellow soldier who is captured alongside Billy during World War II. He is delusional and obsessed with the idea of heroism, imagining himself as part of a brave band of soldiers called the Three Musketeers. Weary blames Billy for their capture and dies of gangrene shortly afterward, but not before telling another soldier, Paul Lazaro, to take revenge on Billy. Weary's character serves as a satirical commentary on the romanticized notions of war and heroism, as his fantasies are far removed from the grim reality of their situation. Paul Lazaro is a vengeful and violent soldier who promises Roland Weary on his deathbed that he will kill Billy Pilgrim in revenge for Weary's death. Lazaro holds grudges and takes pleasure in the idea of revenge, embodying the darker, more malevolent side of human nature. He eventually fulfills his promise by killing Billy years later, during a speech in Chicago. Lazaro's character represents the senseless violence and cruelty that permeates the novel, further illustrating the theme of the absurdity of human conflict. Montana Wildhack is a famous actress who is also abducted by the Tralfamadorians and becomes Billy's companion during his time on their planet. She and Billy form a strange relationship while they are displayed in a zoo on Tralfamador. Montana's character, though not central to the novel, represents another aspect of Billy's disjointed reality and adds to the surreal, science-fictional elements of the story. Their relationship is portrayed as a form of escape from the harshness of the real world, though it is also emblematic of the novel's blending of fantasy and reality. The Tralfamadorians are an alien race that abducts Billy and take him to their planet, where he learns their unique philosophy on time and existence. They perceive time as a series of fixed moments, with all events, past, present, and future, happening simultaneously. As a result, they have no concept of free will or change, believing that everything is predetermined. The Tralfamadorians' view of time deeply influences Billy's own outlook on life, leading him to adopt a fatalistic attitude toward events, particularly death. Their presence in the novel serves as a metaphor for Billy's struggle to make sense of the chaos and trauma he has experienced. Let's explore together the main themes and concepts of the book. The horrors of war. A central theme of Slaughterhouse-Five is the horrific impact of war on individuals and society. Through Billy Pilgrim's experiences in World War II, particularly the bombing of Dresden, Vonnegut portrays the senseless destruction and loss of life that war causes. The novel rejects any notion of war as heroic or noble, instead emphasizing its absurdity and brutality. Vonnegut's anti-war message is clear. War is a dehumanizing force that strips individuals of their innocence and humanity. The novel's fragmented narrative and dark humor serve to underscore the chaos and futility of war, leaving readers with a profound sense of its destructive power. The illusion of free will. The novel questions the concept of free will, particularly through Billy Pilgrim's experiences with the Tralfamadorians. According to their philosophy, time is fixed, and all events, past, present, and future, happen simultaneously, leaving no room for choice or change. Billy's adoption of this worldview leads him to accept all events, including death, with passive resignation. This perspective challenges the idea that individuals have control over their destinies, suggesting instead that life is governed by forces beyond our understanding or control. The novel's exploration of free will also extends to its critique of war, implying that individuals caught in the machinery of conflict are powerless to change their fates. The trauma of time and memory. Slaughterhouse-Five is deeply concerned with the effects of trauma on the human mind, particularly in relation to time and memory. Billy's experience of being unstuck in time can be seen as a metaphor for post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, as he is unable to process the linear progression of events due to the overwhelming impact of the war. His constant time travel between different moments of his life reflects his fragmented psyche, as he relives traumatic experiences without being able to fully integrate them into a cohesive narrative. The novel's non-linear structure mirrors Billy's disjointed perception of time, emphasizing the lasting effects of trauma on memory and identity. The absurdity of existence. Vonnegut's novel grapples with the absurdity of human existence, particularly in the face of death and destruction. The frequent use of the phrase, "so it goes," after every mention of death, reflects a sense of existential resignation, as life's tragedies are presented as inevitable and unchangeable. The novel's dark humor and satirical tone further highlight the absurdity of war, politics, and human behavior. By juxtaposing moments of horror with moments of humor, Vonnegut suggests that life is both ridiculous and tragic, and that finding meaning in such a world is a futile endeavor. Billy's passive acceptance of life's absurdities underscores the novel's exploration of existential themes. Let's talk about the author. Kurt Vonnegut, born in 1922 in Indianapolis, Indiana, was an American writer known for his dark humor, satire, and unique blend of science fiction and social commentary. Vonnegut's experiences as a soldier during World War II, particularly his survival of the bombing of Dresden, deeply influenced his writing, most notably in Slaughterhouse-Five, 1969. The novel is considered one of his greatest works and a classic of 20th century literature, exploring themes of war, trauma, and the absurdity of life. Vonnegut's distinctive style, characterized by his sharp wit and humanistic concerns, resonated with readers across generations. In addition to Slaughterhouse-Five, Vonnegut wrote other influential works, including Cat's Cradle and Breakfast of Champions. He passed away in 2007, leaving behind a legacy of thought-provoking, genre-defying literature. Sincere thanks for watching. If you found this summary helpful, consider taking a moment to hit the subscribe button, like or share the video. If you have any feedbacks or book requests, make sure to leave a comment. Regardless, I wish you a great day.